Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream with the amazing and talented Meg Marie. She is my brand photographer. She makes me look beautiful in pictures, and she's also my friend. So, very talented all around. And she was, I won't do a big intro. She's going to tell you all about herself. But today is all about if you would like to learn how to create your own flat lays, if you would like to learn more about brand photography, and if it's important and what kind of gear to get and all of that good stuff. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Meg to introduce herself.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic. I am a photographer full-time, and I actually got into photography because I was a full-time wedding photographer, thinking that's what I would do forever. I actually photograph more personal brands now, but when I was a wedding photographer, I did a lot more flat lays for invitations and all the details on a wedding day, and flat lays are really fun, so I'm excited to talk about this today. But yeah, I guess what else? I got into photography. Actually, my story starts with me having 27 jobs. My first business failed. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I moved abroad to Taiwan to teach English because I wanted to travel. And that's where I actually picked up my first camera, not knowing that it would grow into this whole business, that passion. And it's been about 3 years, and I'm loving it. So that's
Cool.
how I got into it.
Yeah, and I think the biggest takeaway from that is that you don't have a degree in photography. You didn't go to school for it. You just like woke up one day and you're like, I'm going to just do this and teach myself and make it a business.
Right. And like, I definitely invested in like courses and mentorships and watched a ton of YouTube videos. That's how I originally got into wedding photography, because I was like learning from all these wedding photographers on YouTube and their courses and how to use a DSLR camera. And then I'm like, oh, you could actually make a real business from this. And what's really helped me, I just want to encourage, if any entrepreneurs, business owners are watching, it's passion and talent and skill. Sometimes is not enough. We have to know the business side of stuff and the branding side, and we have to build our brands. So that's what I love, that I get to serve women like you, Lisa, and entrepreneurs now, helping to build their brand, because that's so important. You could have a beautiful product or service, but if you're not branding yourself well and showing up online, it's going to be really hard to stand out. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that today. And I'm also pregnant, so I feel like I'm getting winded talking. I'm like I'm on my last month. I only have like a few weeks left. It's my first baby, and so I just noticed I like get tired now talking and walking around.
Well, I think all of your organs are just smushed. So like you have a smaller lung capacity, I think, as well.
Yeah, I just feel it. I'm like, why am I getting winded right now talking? It's the baby.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys don't even know how lucky we are to talk to Meg today. We're so close on the cusp of her having the baby and not being available for anything. So these will be the last words of wisdom she'll probably be sharing online for a while.
Truth. That is true.
So let's just talk about, because a lot of people watching, some do planners and stationery, but a lot of them do wedding invitations and envelopes. So how is it different working with brides than it is entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so brides, if anybody has been a bride before and got married, who's watching this, you know that planning a wedding is stressful, right? Like it's a lot. And you always, like, I know I was like the simple basic B bride, where I was like, I'm not going to stress. I'm not going to make it a big thing. I'm going to, DIY stuff. And I don't care about all the fancy flowers and invitations and details. But then when you start planning, you do care. And then you get a preference, right? So brides have their like specific preference, and they really want everything to go perfect, because it's so much planning and money. Even if you are doing like more DIY, you're still investing thousands and thousands of dollars. And so just keep that in mind. You always want to be thinking about like that bride, that ideal client, and how important this is to her. And the little details really, really matter. I think about like the vendors I had on my wedding day, like my wedding planner. and my photographer. And I just really was so grateful when they paid attention to the details.
Mhm.
And they didn't make me feel bad for it, for like being, detailed and wanting things a certain way. They really cater to me. And I think that's the key thing, is just put yourself in that bride's shoes, and every bride's a little different. There's some brides that are going to be more chill and more relaxed. And then some, and you're going to feel this, you're going to know from their energy of like planning and working with them, if they're the type A. And so just cater to that and let them know, like, I'm here for you, whatever you need. Go the extra mile, I think, is big.
Cool. And then I guess for people that are just starting out with invitations or even photography or anything else, what's the best way to break into that industry and find brides?
Yeah, it's not easy. I will tell you that. When I kind of pivoted to working with more entrepreneurs, it was easier because business owners talk and they refer you. And I went to these networking events. That was really helpful. But with brides, it takes a little while to get into the network. But one of the best things is vendor connections and relationships. So, if you are doing wedding invitations, you want to have a few florists that you work with and recommend. And by you recommending them, they're going to be grateful and recommend you back. And same thing with the photographers, the venues. Like, if you can get in with the venues, that is like everything. Because the venue, usually a bride is picking out her venue first. Then think about maybe photographer, videographer. Invitations come like a little down the line as far as like vendors. So if you're a wedding invitation creator, is that what designer? You want to just start to build these connections. Follow people on Instagram in your local area, or it doesn't have to be local. Probably if you're in the invitation industry, right? You don't have to be there at the wedding, which is nice. But just start following other brands in the wedding industry, and vendors, photographers, cake decorators, florists that you really admire, and you feel like they're working with the type of clients that you would want to work with. And that's kind of like my first tip, is just start building those relationships right away, early on, because it does take time. You're not just going to connect with somebody, like have a little Zoom coffee chat, hear about their business, and then they're going to refer you 100 people, right? It takes time. Showing up consistently, liking their social media, commenting, sharing their posts. But that is a really great strategy. What else? Finding brides. That was the question, right?
Did you go to those? Because I see those expos all the time. Is that worth it? Because they're pretty expensive.
Right. So I didn't go to them. I'm not the best person to ask. However, I know people that have gone. And the biggest thing with that is you want to go in with a really good strategy. There's actually, like, I've seen courses about this, and you can search the internet and find someone who's actually like killing it at those expos. Learn from someone who is booking a ton of brides from those expos and see what they're doing. A lot of it is just, you want a beautiful display, but you have to be a little outgoing. You have to have a really good, at the expo, like a really good incentive for them to sign up. Like, maybe I'm giving away a free wedding, like one bride will win like free invitations this year. Leave your name and email. So you're collecting all the names and emails, you're getting to know them in person. And then you want to give them a call. You want to actually call them on the phone, and that will help you really stand out. I learned this from another photographer friend who does like crush it at those expos. He's like, most people will just collect brides' emails, send them a generic email, and they're going to get thousands of those, right? Well, dozen from like all the vendors at the wedding, and you're just going to get lost. But if you actually take the time to call a bride and be like, hey, whether you won the contest or not, let's say they didn't win, but you're like, hey, I just wanted to call and let you know you're not the winner, but I'd love to offer you this special deal if you haven't got your wedding invites yet, and just see how I can serve you, and just have a conversation. Like, if you just do that, you're going to stand out, and a lot of those leads will turn into clients. So it's all about like the strategy, and it can absolutely be worth the investment, but you need to like have a strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I heard advice here. I don't know if I necessarily buy into this. A lot of people say just do it for free. to get things, just get your portfolio up and running? Is that really a good use of time and resources?
Like do what for free? Like get some free clients and just
Yeah. Just
like get
do
your
wedding
product
photography
away.
for free, invitations for free.
Yeah, I think it can be if you're being strategic about it, who you're
Mhm.
giving it, away for free to. Let's say you know someone in the wedding industry. She's like a florist, or like me, like when I'm a wedding photographer. Like,
Mhm.
do you know all the photos my wedding photographer took of us? I mean, I post them. I tag the heck out of them. Like my florist, my calligraphy girl, like I am like really lifting up her business. So like
Mhm.
I would be a good person to give that to free, away for free to. Because I'm actually like I have a good network on Instagram,
Mhm.
and maybe do a little research about who, if you are gonna say, okay, I'm gonna give this away to 3 brides this year. 3 free like give my product away for free or my service. Let me kind of do some research. Who's like my dream ideal bride who's like posting a lot
Mhm.
and really on social media, and I know she'll share the photos. So be strategic.
That's a good point. Yeah, it would be a shame to give it away to someone who just is one of those recluses who never goes on social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah,
Even if
I
they
mean,
want
it can work for sure. There's something else I was going to say to that. It'll come back to me.
to. Okay. So let's go to the next step then, because, a lot of times, like when I send my invitations out, I'm like, I just kind of ask, like, hey, can you, if you can, get some photos of the invitations, like at the table or the wedding signage that I did. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Like, can they, like, is it weird if they just reach out directly to the photographer, or should they take those wedding invitations and just do their own staging, like somewhere else, or ask to?
Yeah, I think here's the thing. So I'm going to give you the insider scoop on photography life. Some brides are paying us to, for that like getting ready part,
Mhm.
and they pay us, add on hours so we can capture the details of the day. Some brides don't. So when they're not paying us to get that, and we don't have the time to get it, it does make it really hard. Because
Mhm.
we have to get family photos, we have to get bride and groom, we have to get bridesmaids, we have to get first look, we have to get this. There's so much to get. And if a bride didn't invest in like that 10 hours of photography or more to like actually save 30 minutes to an hour to get those shots, it's not
Mhm.
that we don't want to, but it's really hard to like fit in. So keep that in mind, that like it depends on what the bride invested with the photographer, if they can even get it. One, but I don't think it's bad to reach out to the photographer. What I would recommend doing is remember, a bride, the closer she gets to her wedding, she's going to be really busy. So here's a little hack: is on your like questionnaire with the bride, you should have some kind of like, I don't know, contract agreement or welcome questionnaire that she fills out about like her general info and what she wants. Make sure to put a question on there: who are your other wedding vendors? Like, please leave their
Mhm.
name, email, and Instagram so I can reach out and thank them and tag them. Um, and have the bride list that. But don't ask like too close to the wedding. You don't want to ask her like a week before, hey, I'm reaching out, can I have your photographer's
Right.
info? Because that's going to stress out your bride. So put it like on the questionnaire towards the beginning of like your time working with her, or send an email
Mhm.
the first few months, like not close to the wedding day. And then yes, absolutely, like reach out to the photographer and just say, I just want to introduce myself and connect with you, because this is good. Build those connections and just say, I'm
Mhm.
excited to be working on Lisa's wedding with you. If at all possible, I would love to get just a few photos of the invitations. Let me know if you have time for that. Here's my email. Share it with me later. And just, you could just ask. And if they have time, they totally will. But don't take it personal if they don't, because it might be that the bride didn't pay for that time.
Mhm.
So I know we're going to talk about DIYing your own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
just
what
go
I'm going
jump
to
into
do.
that. Right? If you're doing it at home, like I know, like I'm looking at my desk, it's a mess. It's not that pretty. I think there's like finger smudge marks places. So, yeah, I remember when you were doing brand photography, you were like, we could do some at your place. I'm like, we can do none at my place. We can do nothing here. It's just not pretty. Like, what can people do to DIY it at their own home, especially if they have like a home like mine where it's not beautiful and set up picturesque?
Yeah. So for under $10, you can actually create your own light box where you can take your Flatlay photos, whether this is for invitations or, you know, your notebook, stationery, whatever it is. And actually, let me just grab really quick and show you. Where is it? Okay. So I used to do this. Oh, this is my little Flatlay trick. So you can get these like poster foam boards from like Walgreens, CVS, or Office Depot, and you want to get 4 of them, and you should be able to do that for like $10 or less, and you make a little light box. So
you just made your own. You didn't actually buy one of those pre-made ones.
No.
You're like, why? Okay.
No. If you're doing the camera exposure and you're using natural light enough, so you're basically, see how it's taped?
Oh, yeah.
So you just tape 3 sides together because you want to leave one side open. And then you'll have a bottom here that you build your Flatlay on. And then you want to face that open side to a natural window light. So this is the biggest tip. Biggest thing I can say is like time of day, lighting is everything, right? To getting those pretty bright, clean, crisp, professional looking Flatlays. So if you want to face your light box towards the window.
Okay.
And you can put it on the floor, on the desk. Try to like find a window in your house where it's like really bright. If you get good morning light in this room, you don't want direct sunlight on there, but you just want a lot of light coming in. And play around with how close versus how far. Because sometimes if it's like a big window, like a sliding door window, and it's the middle of the day, it might be too bright to put right there. So you can kind of move it back a little bit and just kind of play around with like how close to the window.
And so we don't want direct sunlight, right? That's like too much light, just indirect. And so does it make a difference? I know this is going to hurt my brain. North, east, west, south facing windows and what time of day?
Yeah, you really usually want the brightest light as possible. So midday, yeah, sometimes morning light is great. Like in this room, actually my office, it's noon right now on the West Coast, but actually in the morning at like 8 or 9, the sun comes right in that window and it's way brighter in here. So it just depends, like see where's like the biggest window in your house. Because the bigger the window, the more even lighting you're going to get. If it's a small window and it's not close to the ground, that's going to be harder. So if you can get like a big window that goes all the way to the ground, see what time of day it's like the most bright right there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then, so aside from buying those boards, is there anything else they should buy? I don't even know, those things that bounce light or anything else, I guess?
You shouldn't need anything else. If honestly, you can make super bright photos just with this like DIY light box and having, you know, a good amount of natural light. You might not, I've never used an artificial light source for Flatlays, honestly.
Oh.
You probably could, but you shouldn't need to. If you're doing it at the right time of day, you know, and also part of this we're going to get into is like editing. If you're editing nice and bright, you know, if you have the light box, it should be enough natural light.
And so if I see a shadow, is it not a big deal? Should I just keep shooting and then just kind of fix it later with editing?
So the light box helps a little with the shadows, right? That's why we make like the 3 sides, because it'll bounce more light back into the shadows. But yeah, shadows can be tricky. Part of it is the editing, the exposure in the camera or in the editing. You can get rid of those shadows. Also, I'm curious, what is causing the shadows? Like invitations or something else you're photographing?
Sometimes, you know how I stick those stampers, right? So those are tall, or a mug, or I don't know, something else that I thought might be pretty to put in there, some flowers.
Yeah. You can add an artificial light. I mean, I do have lights. I've never had to use it for a flat lay, but if the light box isn't working and you're by a really bright window and you tried kind of turning the light box to see if you can get rid of those shadows and it's still not working, you could add like a fill light in on that side and just play around with how far and or versus how close it is, because it can also cause more shadows on the other side of the object if it's too close. So you have to kind of play around with that.
Okay. And then just talking about that, like those accessories that you add in, what are some good ones that you see that really help the photos? And then what are some bad ones where you're like, I don't know why somebody added that?
Okay, I have some notes here on this one. I
Okay.
wrote this question. So, the biggest thing is it should make sense for what you're photographing. It should complement the invitation or the notebook or the product, and it should make sense for the brand. So kind of like some of it is just common sense. Like you're not going to put like food, a weird thing. Like you're not going to put pizza with a wedding invitation, right? But you might do like a little macaroon or something. Excuse me, like a little cute macaroon might go with that, right? So use common sense, but also with invitations, well, a couple rules. So common sense is one, and try to be, on brand. The other one is just make sure other items you're bringing in, they don't have their own branding on there. So if you're going to use like cute pens or pencils or notebooks, you really don't want like competing brands and words with what you're focusing on, what you're really trying to highlight in the photo, because you want the viewer's eye to go to your product, right? Like your invitation. So everything else, it should just be complementing and not competing with the main thing. And so what else did I say? I said, keep it simple.
Okay.
One of the biggest mistakes people make, I wanted to talk about, is they just put too much stuff in the flat lay, and then your eyes don't know where to go. Like you lose the focus point. You don't have an anchor focus because your eyes are like, they don't even know what to focus on, right? So keep it simple, things that are going to complement, and like complementary colors as well. Like, if you have these beautiful like light pink and white invitations, you don't want to put like a bright yellow, something that's going to just draw the eye away. So that's hopefully isn't obvious to most of the people watching this who are designers, but just wanted to mention that. But for invitations, like loose leaf floral and leaves, greenery is really good, like things that would really be at the wedding. Or you can do ribbon, pieces of fabric. Different textures can be really nice to add in. Texture can, like some nice texture fabric, but you want to make sure it can lay flat. You know how you can get like stiff ribbon versus like silky flat? Yeah, you want stuff that's going to lay pretty flat, right?
Okay.
And then what else? I just said for other stuff, like if it's not like pens, stampers. I know you use pens and stampers in yours. Yeah, like I love like the old school. I don't even know if it's old school, but the stamper you have, the wood.
Oh, yeah. I had two big stampers. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like that it has that texture, that wood green. Texture is really nice. And a lot of wedding photographers and just in the wedding industry like use the ribbons, the spools of thread and fabrics, florals. You want to pick the florals that are like smaller and not competing and aren't going to be like a big rose that's going to be hard to get in focus. Florals that like lay flat, right?
Yeah. And so when it comes to being in focus, should everything in the photo be in focus or just the invitation? Like, should you try to blur things out or no? Or does it not matter?
I think in general, flat lays, usually they look better when most of the things are in focus. Sometimes it can work if you're blurring things out, but most of the time you want everything in focus.
Okay.
You don't want things that are like really a lot higher than the invitations. And it's also your camera settings are going to make a big difference with this.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about like best practices for actually doing this, like the wedding invitations that you've seen and what you'd advise to keep in mind.
Yeah, I got some notes I wrote down for styling here.
So prepared.
I know. I like to take notes so I at least have because I'll forget stuff otherwise. So best practices, we talked about lighting. Lighting is number one best practice. It needs to be a bright day. Make your light box. Find that natural light. And then as far as like styling, um, think about keep the main thing, your invitation or that product or that notebook you're trying to, show off, or that template. Keep that as the main thing, right? And kind of build everything else around there. Again, you don't want to put too much in to where it's like competing and your eyes are going to be all over the place. And make sure, let's see what I say. Oh yeah, do you know this rule of like odd number of things versus even number of things?
No.
So just in general, like our eyes are used to even numbers. Our brains can process like even numbers quicker and easier. However, with things like flatlays or like photography or visual, anything visual art, it's better to group things in odd numbers. It's better to group things in odd numbers because your brain works a little harder to like focus on them. And it's just this rule. It's just this rule. So like, for instance, if you have invitations, you don't want to put like 1, 2, 3, 4, parts of the invitation. It'd be better to highlight 3, like the invitation, the envelope, the whatever. I don't know all the invitation terminology, but
Right. Okay. That's good to know. Okay. Same thing for
accessories. What else? Oh yeah. So keep that main thing the main thing. And then also like use those leading lines. So as you start to place like florals in, or if it's like a journal and you're using cute like gold paper clips and pens and folders, try to kind of almost have those things like pointing towards that main item you're trying to highlight, and kind of use those leading lines to make sure it's kind of almost framing that item. And we're going to look at some examples so I can kind of point out some of this.
Cool.
And then take your time. Take your time. It takes time.
Okay.
It's hard.
Then I guess if you don't rush it, what's the, biggest mistake you've seen people make?
Biggest mistakes, I mentioned like just having too much stuff in the flat lay. Things being out of focus. And so that has to do with your aperture. If you're using it, I know a lot of people might be using an iPhone, which is fine. The iPhone will focus for you, but you can actually, is it only in portrait mode? You can change the aperture on the iPhone. It's only in portrait mode.
I've never tried it. I've always had to use an app if I want to, and then external lens if I wanted to change the aperture. Okay.
So if you use portrait mode in iPhone, you can change the aperture, but portrait mode's pretty zoomed in. I'm not really an iPhone expert. However, if you are using a camera and you're a little more advanced and experienced, keep in mind you want to use a higher aperture. So you start at 2.8, because generally when I'm doing portrait photography, like your brand photos, Lisa, almost every photo is lower than 2.8 aperture. But for a flat lay, I'm gonna start at 2.8 and then go up, even to like 5, 7, 11, 20 aperture, because that's gonna allow me to get more in focus.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
And something to know, one little trick, if you're using a professional camera, or I think iPhone might even do this too, there's a thing called lens distortion. And so what happens is it's natural for lenses towards the outside of the lens to get a little distorted. And what can happen is you can line all the invitations up so perfectly on your flat lay, right? And you're looking at it and it's like so perfect. But then you take the picture and like the ends are not like lined up anymore. And that has to do with the lens. So sometimes you have to take the picture, look at it, and then see where you need to adjust, take it again, to make sure in the actual photo, things are going to look lined up.
Okay, good. Yeah, so let's talk about equipment and gear. What are you using and what do you think is best?
I use Nikon. I don't necessarily think it's best. I actually want to switch to Canon. Okay. Because Canon's a little easier, like from what I've used and edited. Canon can be easier to edit skin tones because I'm a portrait photographer. It just makes sense. It would save me editing time. However, anything can work for flatlays.
Okay.
I almost think you really don't need a DSLR camera. You could get a mirrorless for flatlays, any, Fujifilm, Sony, Nikon, and Canon also make mirrorless now, are great, or your iPhone. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention that is a big mistake. I don't want to forget this. When you're doing the flat lay, you need to hold it up right over the flat lay, the camera, the phone or the camera, like right in the middle, and play around with how close versus how high. And you can always crop later in editing, and you don't want to tilt. Sometimes I see people do a weird tilt, and that's where, things get out of focus. You can't read the whole invitation. It just looks weird. It's not like a true flat lay if you're not right over it.
And so do you use a stand or you just hold it?
I just hold it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's hard to use a stand for a flat lay. I don't think you can.
It really depends on the stand. I have a special stand where it will flip it the whole way, but yeah, it's usually hard to find a stand that will flip to a downward 180 degree angle.
Yeah, you can just hold it. You just want good practices, hold your elbows in. It's going to make it a lot more stable so you don't have blur versus this. It's a lot harder to keep the camera stable. So just elbows in. You might need a stool. You'll probably need like a stepping stool to make sure you're getting high enough over it to where, like I said, you're right over the middle and you're not guessing, you can see.
And this is so silly. Like, is it like when do you have to exhale and then take the photo on the exhale in case you're breathing and it ruins the photo?
I mean, that's a good question. If you're using an iPhone, it's even more important you have to stay super still. So that would be good because you can exhale and just snap. Because if you have a camera and you know how to use manual mode, you can set the shutter speed to be like 500 or above. A high shutter speed will prevent motion blur.
Okay. And then for lenses, do you use different lenses, or is there a special lens that's your go-to for flat lays?
Yeah, I would say my go-to for flat lays is going to be a 35 millimeter because it's like wide enough to where I don't have to hold it up so high and get on a ladder, to get the whole thing. However, it's not too wide. Like it's not like a 24 that's going to distort the picture. 24 millimeter. It's kind of like a happy medium, 35 millimeter.
And then does the f-stop matter at all on those?
Yeah, so that f-stop is the aperture, just a different word for aperture. That's what I was saying. You want to start at 2.8, but maybe even go up to like 20. Okay. If you want to get everything in focus, it really depends on the layers of the flat lay. Like if it's just flat invitations, usually 3.5 should be plenty, like 2.8 to 3.5. But if you start adding little flowers and some greeneries and that little like a spool of thread, if you want to get that all in focus, you're going to have to up because there's different layers.
Okay. And if you're new and you've never bought a lens, just so when you buy that lens, look for the low f-stop number because certain lenses don't go that low. So if you buy a 3.5 f-stop, you can never use the 2.8 because it can go higher, but it can't go lower.
But honestly, Lisa, for flat lays, higher is even better. I feel like you don't need low.
Okay.
The f-stop, it's really nice to have a low f-stop when you're doing portraits. If you're planning to like also use your camera for like branding photos and headshots or other things, then yeah, a lower aperture is better. And I will say generally better quality lenses, they go lower aperture. So if it's like a 2.0 lens or 1.8 lens, then it's kind of a sign that it's probably a better lens, but not always. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. I think it's different. So for video, my favorite lens is always Sigma lenses. They're like a standard for photography lenses.
Yeah, no, I actually use Sigma too on my Nikon. I use the Nikon camera with Sigma Art series. The Art series is like a heavier lens glass. But I'm confident, like I could take my $300, my starter lens that I still have that only goes down to 3.5 aperture and get pretty much the same photo as my $2,000 lens for a flat lay. For a flat lay. Now for portraits, totally different story. Like that lens will not look the same as for like a branding portrait as that Sigma one. But for a flat lay, a lot of it, again, it's just getting that bright light. It's the styling and then the editing. Maybe we should talk about the editing.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So I know Lightroom. Ideally, like Lightroom's a great resource for editing because you can upload presets, create your own, and you can bulk edit at once. And it's a great resource to learn software, Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. But you don't have to, you also, if you don't have like a natural eye for editing and getting like that consistency across all your photos so your brand looks really nice, then consider investing in presets.
Okay.
And there's one preset brand called the Light and Airy Presets.
Light and Airy Presets.
Maybe
Okay.
I'll try to find their website really quick, but I do recommend them because they're really bright and airy and a lot of wedding, brides and clients, and just for invitations, just that style of editing looks really, really nice. Of course, you have to kind of decide what is going to be your look, but I do recommend. I don't think this is it. Oh, maybe it is. Light and Airy presets. But what's cool is like most presets will also, when you buy your presets, look for one that comes with instructions, like a video that shows you how to put it in the Lightroom mobile app or Lightroom on your desktop and how to use it.
Okay.
And a lot of them will have that.
Yeah, directions are helpful. Yeah, I bought a lot of products where I'm like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Make it.
If you're not familiar with the software, you want something that comes with showing you just not hard, but you need to like follow along.
Yeah.
How to load in the preset, how to use it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, those are all my questions. I think you were going to share some stuff, and then I don't think any questions popped up on the feed, so we're good.
Yeah, I was just thinking it could be kind of fun to go on Instagram. Let me screen share.
Okay.
And just look for some flat lays and see some of the stuff we talked about today, kind of see it in action. So hashtag flat lay style. I just started typing flat lays to see. Oh, look at all these little fall flat lays. Flat lay style. Let me see. How about wedding flat lays? You can get a lot of inspiration from using Instagram and just kind of creating a little vision board. That's what I used to do as a wedding photographer. Is I had like a vision board of flat lays that I love that I could kind of recreate and play with, right? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Nice. Flat lay. I wonder if they have invitation. Oh, they do. 381 posts. Here we go. So yeah, this can give you a lot of inspiration. Notice like just right away, you notice a lot of the backgrounds, they're white or light colors, gray, neutral. It's not distracting, right? This is the only darker tone one. So kind of and it's also edited darker. So you want to kind of know your style, right? You want consistency. Let's look at this person's. They do have a lot going on, but they're using the leading lines to frame this, and my eyes still go like right here, right? So that's nice. Even the scissors are kind of pointing towards the invitation, right? So I like this, and lots of layers. Look at all that's kind of cool paper they used behind.
Oh yeah, the distressed paper.
Yeah, I like that. And they use a lot of like just simple tones and colors, but no like bright red over here, right? It's like it all blends well together. And look at see that rule of odd numbers. They use 3 stamps right here instead of like 4, 5, like right here. And
Yeah, one pair of scissors, one twine. Oh, we have a question. Darlene is asking, should the background of the flat lay be white or is a light color acceptable?
I think a light color is great as long as it goes with your brand, Darlene. So like, what are your brand colors? Hopefully you have a kind of a palette for your branding and try to match that as much as possible, because then when you look at your Instagram, it's going to go together really nice. Let's go to her Instagram. See, look at her color palette. It's very intentional. It all goes. You don't see like a bunch of like, well, there's a little pop of red, but she keeps it really small. It's not like a big red background, right? It's all just kind of neutral colors. So a lot of her details that she might even bring some of these to style with kind of go with her brand colors. Like these greens that she picked, and yeah. I mean, I just think white is nice because it allows your invitations to really pop and stand out. But you can totally do a different solid color background if it's something light. I wanted to like maybe find a bad flat lay example, but let me see. Go back to this. Oh, here, they're down. Oh, where's that hashtag that we were on? There we go. Where's more?
Yeah, that's weird.
This is only the top. Oh, maybe because I'm on a desktop and not the computer.
No.
Oh,
I feel like Instagram made some changes the other day because I tried sending someone a DM and it didn't go through.
this is cute how she like took, she just did a simple ribbon. I know this is for a ring, not an invitation, but this could easily be like a couple invitations in the middle of this. And I bet you yellow was, you know, the bride's colors, and then they added the little lemon slices. I like that. Yeah. What else are hashtags?
I'm not even on Instagram anymore. Flatlays, wedding invitations.
Wedding invitations.
Because then they haven't been styled, in theory.
Let's see. I get a mix. Oh, yeah. So there's nothing wrong with like this one, but see how they were tilting? They weren't right over it. I mean, they intentionally did that. It actually looks good, but it's not really a true flat lay.
And it has shadows.
It does have the shadows. Yeah, and I see that that really bugs you, huh, Lisa?
Yeah.
This is creative and unique. But the only thing with this is my eye doesn't know where to go. I mean, I guess it does go to, it goes to both of these. I feel like the attention is shared, and maybe that's because it's an even number, 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of if it was 3, I might just like my eye would go to the middle.
Right.
This is so pretty. Wow. Yeah, trays. That's another good one. I see a lot of wedding photographers using is trays. I actually never had one of my own, but my wedding photographer, she brought like a really pretty tray to style my stuff on. Stamps, that's another good one. I see this a lot for invitations because it obviously goes. So try to find some on-brand stamps you could get online, especially like in your colors, your brand colors that you can use with your invitations. I don't love how, see this hotspot, the direct sun on the upper left? It's distracting, right? It's very distracting. I can see sometimes people intentionally do some creative stuff, but I don't think that was intentional. It's just kind of like distracting and causing all these shadows.
Yeah, we know how I feel about shadows.
Yeah, I don't like that. That's just some fabric. This is nice. So you want to really take the time to get this perfectly lined up. And remember, take a photo on your camera and then look at the photo, because it might have distortion and you might have to like slightly adjust or slightly tilt one of the invitations so that it's nice and straight. But look at less is more, right? She literally just did invitations with the envelopes, and she did 1, 2, 3 little pieces of, what is that called? What's that plant called?
Oh, I don't know. Fern?
Like, I don't know what it is. Lily, I don't know. I always forget the name of those. But you can go around your neighborhood and pick some fresh greenery or stuff like this if you know where it grows nearby. And you don't need a lot of it, you know. I think less is more because you want the viewer's eye to really focus on your invitations and these details. This isn't a flat lay, so we're going to skip it because we're talking about flat. Look at this one. it looks blurry to me.
It
Not
just doesn't look right.
yeah. It doesn't look right. I don't know, it's so weird. Instagram's only showing me 9 photos. Let's look at one more. Let's look at just stationary flat lays.
Okay.
Oh, there's only one post. Oh,
What?
yeah.
Did you spell stationary with an E-R-Y?
Let's look at cute flat lays. Cute
Okay.
flat lays.
Cute.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Very cute. The colors.
A little
And
too cute.
even this, like, there's kind of a lot going on, but it works because, like, the brand is very fun and bright, and it's Sailor Moon, which
Mhm.
has all these crazy colors. And so to add in these hot pink flowers, it works for that brand, right? And yeah, I don't know. I like that.
Mm. Oh, I know a
Yeah.
hashtag. Can you look up, I don't even know if it'll be here, planner flat lays? Because a lot of people do planners.
Yeah, planner flat lays. Okay. That's a good
Hmm.
one. Only 14 posts, but whoa, these aren't the best. So like this one
dominate that.
isn't a true flat lay because they weren't over it. This is
Yeah,
kind of blah.
uh-huh.
Yeah, this one I don't love it. It's they need, I think if you took the pin out and put it here and added just like a couple more things, it actually could work, but it's the way it is, it's not very interesting, right?
Mhm.
Hi.
Yeah. Oh,
Interesting.
there's a hmm?
I know there's not a lot for that one.
There's a question again.
Mhm.
Dolls in Training is asking, what free, if possible, editing programs do you like to use to get rid of any background noise?
Um, I mean, I pay for Adobe Lightroom subscription, which is $9.99 a month, and it's totally worth it to me because it saves me a ton of time.
Mhm.
I honestly don't know of any free apps. I'm sorry. I wish I could answer this question, but I don't use any like editing apps, but there are a lot of free ones out there. Do you know any, Lisa?
I don't use anything free. I
Okay.
don't even use Canva. Oh, she had a
The
follow-up.
Lightroom is affordable because it actually
Mhm.
it's a monthly subscription, so you could just try it. It's
Yeah.
10 bucks a month, and think about like hiring me as your brand photographer would cost you a couple thousand a month, you know, like
Yeah.
it's worth the $10 investment and time to learn, you know, how to use it. It's
Mhm.
a really powerful tool, and time is money, and it's going to save you so much time once you kind of like load in some presets and learn how to just bulk edit in there versus like a lot of the free apps and editing programs. The problem is that you're going to edit one photo at a time. And
Mhm.
actually, it's going to take you a lot longer than something like Lightroom, where you can edit multiple photos at once.
I think she has a light box question. I'm looking forward to marketing. She's saying, I'm looking forward to marketing a planner book, and I would need to stand it up inside the light box. I'm afraid of the creases of the light box would show behind the products. Oh, that's why she wants the auditing. I mean, I agree with Meg. I think you should buy, or you should just do the Adobe
The light
Lightroom.
box? Oh, I know what she's saying. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's so, I don't know. I feel like it's a
Yeah,
minimal
well, we're really
investment.
focused on flat lay photography. Product photography is going to be a little different because the
Mhm.
way you can actually fix that with product photography is that's when you want to play around with distancing that product in the front from the background, and the farther from the background it is, the more you can just blur out the background. You won't even see those lines.
Mm.
Like I can show you a little example. I just did this shoot.
Mhm.
Can you see my screen still?
Yeah.
Okay. I just did this shoot for, hold on, a client, and she has some spices that we photographed. And like, there actually is the countertop here. There's like a door back here. There's shelves
Mhm.
over here, but you can't see it because the product was really far from the background. And so I was able to just blur all that out naturally with a DSLR camera. Does that make sense?
Yeah, with the low f-stop.
Yeah. So even like if you're doing product photography, that's when you're gonna probably want to get a nice camera because
Mhm.
it's easier to do that kind of stuff. Flatlays, you can get away with really using an iPhone and, making it look good. But I don't know.
Uh, and then she just had a last comment. Great point about color palette on Instagram pages. How can we
Yeah.
edit? How can we edit our photos so they look similar to our previous posts? I mean, that's just the filter, right?
Yeah, so it's all about, if you don't have a natural eye for editing to match like the color balance, the white, the exposure, the brightness, because that's like what I do full time and I had to really
Mhm.
learn and practice to get there. That's where like buying a preset is really helpful and using something like Lightroom because you can put that preset on and then you just make minor adjustments to like exposure and shadows and you just kind of can match it from there. But that's like a good base to start with.
Cool. Awesome. Well, you guys, thanks so
Hey.
much, Meg. This was really great. And
Mhm.
I don't think there are any more questions. So if you guys are in San Diego and you'll wait until I think you're back to working in May, April, like next spring, right?
Yeah.
If you want a brand photo shoot with Meg, you can reach out to her next spring.
Yay. Yeah, definitely. I
And
would
then make
love
sure to follow
to.
Meg on Instagram. Her handle is right underneath her photo.
Yeah, that's me on Instagram. That's where I hang out. So any other questions you can ask me on there. And let's keep in touch for sure.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
Lisa.